Flight 447 to Miami. Business class. A perfectly manicured hand slams down on armrest 3A. Excuse me, but I think you're in my seat. Maya Washington looked up from her Forbes magazine. The 42-year-old woman wore a tailored navy blazer that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her diamond wedding ring caught the cabin lights as she turned the page. The man standing over her was sweating despite the air conditioning. Richard Sterling, mid-50s, rumpled polo shirt, already red-faced before the confrontation started. This is 3A. Sterling waved his crumpled boarding pass. I paid extra for this seat. Maya's eyebrow arched slightly. She didn't speak. Didn't move. Just held his gaze with the kind of calm that comes from knowing something he didn't. Other passengers turned to stare. The tension was immediate, electric. Have you ever been so underestimated that your silence became your greatest weapon? Look, lady, I don't know who you borrowed that outfit from, but... Sterling's voice carried through the cabin. He positioned himself closer, using his height to intimidate the seated woman. Maya remained perfectly still. Her manicured fingers stayed wrapped around her magazine. The only movement was the slight tilt of her head as she studied him. Sir, is there a problem? Jessica Chen, a 28-year-old Stanford MBA student in seat 3B, looked up from her laptop. Something about the man's tone made her uncomfortable. No problem, Sterling said without looking at her. Just someone who doesn't understand airplane seating. Jessica's phone was already in her hand. She'd seen enough viral videos to know where this was heading. One tap, and she was live streaming on TikTok. I think there's been some confusion, Sterling continued, his voice getting louder. This lady seems to think she belongs in business class. The microaggression hit like a slap. Maya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she still didn't speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a 15-minute departure delay due to passenger seating issues. The announcement crackled through the cabin speakers. Sterling's face brightened. See? You're holding up the whole flight. Patricia Jones, the gate agent, appeared at the head of the aisle. Her forced smile suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. She was a 20-year veteran who dealt with difficult passengers before, but something about this scene felt different. Is there a seating issue here? Patricia asked, her eyes automatically going to Maya first. This woman is clearly in the wrong seat, Sterling said, pointing. Can you please handle this? Maya reached into her purse and produced her boarding pass. She handed it to Patricia without a word. The gate agent's eyes scanned the document. Ma'am, this shows seat 3A, Patricia said, confusion creeping into her voice. That's impossible, Sterling snapped. Let me see that. But Maya had already tucked the boarding pass away. In the brief moment it was visible, Jessica caught something on her live stream. The letters Platinum Elite were printed in gold across the top. She probably upgraded at the last minute, Sterling muttered, or traded seats with someone. The digital departure board updated. Departure, 14 minutes. Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. An email subject line was partially visible. Board meeting agenda, Miami acquisition. She closed the phone quickly, but not before Jessica's camera caught it. Sir, I need to see your boarding pass, Patricia said. Sterling handed it over triumphantly. 3A, paid for months ago. Patricia studied both documents. Her frown deepened. There seems to be a duplicate assignment. This happens sometimes with our system. Then she needs to move, Sterling said immediately. I was here first. Actually, sir, she was seated when I boarded, Jessica said from 3B. Her phone was still recording. And she's been here for 20 minutes. Sterling's face reddened further. I don't care how long she's been sitting there. That's my seat. Maya's briefcase sat in the overhead compartment. The monogrammed MW was visible, along with a distinctive corporate logo that Jessica couldn't quite make out on her phone screen. Ma'am, Patricia said to Maya, would you mind if we found you another seat? Perhaps in first class? Maya finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, controlled. I'm comfortable here. This is ridiculous, Sterling exploded. Some people just don't know their place. The words hung in the air like poison. Jessica's viewer count was climbing. 23 people watching. 50. 85. I'm sure this is all very confusing for you, Sterling continued, his voice dripping with condescension. But I have an important meeting in Miami. I can't be delayed because of some mix-up. Maya's composure never cracked, but something shifted in her eyes, a calculation being made. Departure, 11 minutes. Sir, please lower your voice, Patricia said, but her authority was wavering. Other passengers were pulling out phones now. The scene was becoming a spectacle. A businessman in 4C was nodding along with Sterling. I've seen this before, he muttered to his seatmate. Captain Brooks emerged from the cockpit. The 55-year-old veteran pilot looked annoyed. Flight delays meant paperwork, missed connections, and angry passengers. What's the situation? He asked Patricia. Seating dispute, Captain. Double booking on 3A. Brooks looked at Maya, then at Sterling. His unconscious bias was subtle but present. The calm black woman versus the agitated white businessman. One of them had to be wrong. Ma'am, he said to Maya, I need you to either move to your assigned seat or deplane. Sterling smirked. He'd won, and he knew it. Maya stood slowly. Every eye in the cabin was on her. Jessica's live stream hit 200 viewers. But Maya didn't head for the exit. Instead, she reached for her briefcase. Flight Supervisor Martinez arrived from the gate desk, clipboard in hand. She was a 15-year veteran who'd seen every kind of passenger dispute imaginable. But the crowd gathering in business class suggested this was something different. Departure. 8 minutes, the digital board announced. What's the delay? Martinez asked Captain Brooks. Seating issue. This passenger refuses to move. Brooks gestured toward Maya, who was now standing with her briefcase in hand. Jessica's TikTok stream had exploded. Y'all seeing this? This man just assumed, she whispered into her phone. The viewer count hit 500 and climbing. Sterling was practically vibrating with self-righteous energy. I've been more than patient, but I have a crucial meeting in Miami. I can't miss my connection because of this confusion. Maya's silence was becoming unnerving. She stood perfectly still, briefcase in hand, watching the chaos unfold around her. Ma'am, we need to resolve this, Martinez said. If you can't produce proper documentation for this seat, we'll have to ask you to deplane. A murmur rippled through the cabin. Passengers in economy were craning their necks to see what was happening. The businesswoman in 2C was live tweeting the scene. The hashtag #flightdrama was starting to trend locally. I have my boarding pass, Maya said quietly. Which clearly has an error, Sterling interrupted. Look, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I paid for this seat. I need this seat. And frankly, I don't think she belongs here anyway. The last comment sent a chill through the cabin. Jessica's phone captured it all. Her viewers were now commenting rapidly, most of them furious. Sir, that's inappropriate, Patricia said weakly. What's inappropriate is delaying an entire flight, Sterling shot back. Some people just don't understand how things work. Captain Brooks was checking his watch. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step off the aircraft. We can sort this out at the gate. You can't be serious, Jessica said, looking up from her phone. She's been sitting here quietly the whole time. This doesn't concern you, Sterling snapped at her. Actually, it does, Jessica replied. I'm documenting this entire thing. My stream has 800 viewers watching you harass this woman. Sterling's face went pale. Harass? I'm not harassing anyone. I'm simply trying to get my assigned seat. The businessman in 4C leaned forward. Look, we've all seen this before. Someone gets an upgrade they don't deserve, then causes a scene when they're caught. Maya's knuckles were white where she gripped her briefcase handle, but her expression remained serene. That's enough, Captain Brooks said, his patience exhausted. Security is on the way. Ma'am, you have 30 seconds to gather your belongings and deplane voluntarily. Departure. 5 minutes. The cabin was now silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. 60-plus passengers were watching the drama unfold. Phones were out everywhere, recording from multiple angles. Sterling was smiling now. He'd won. The troublemaker would be removed, he'd get his seat, and they'd finally take off. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said to Maya, not sounding sorry at all. "But rules are rules." Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile a chess player gives when they're about to reveal checkmate. "Captain Brooks," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the cabin. "Before you call security, I think you should see something." She opened her briefcase. Sterling leaned forward, curious despite himself. What could she possibly have that would matter? Maya pulled out a single sheet of paper. It looked official, with letterhead and signatures. She handed it to Captain Brooks without a word. The captain's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion first, then recognition, then horror. The color drained from his face completely. His posture straightened like he'd been electrocuted. "Ms. Washington," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I had no idea." Patricia moved closer, trying to see the document. Her eyes widened as she read. "Oh my God," she breathed. Sterling was still confused. "What? What's going on?" Jessica's live stream was going wild. "Y'all, something big just happened. The captain looks like he's seen a ghost." Maya took the document back and placed it carefully in her briefcase. She looked at Sterling, who was still demanding answers. "What was that?" he asked. "What did you show him?" Maya sat back down in seat 3A. She crossed her legs and opened her Forbes magazine. "Just my credentials," she said simply. Captain Brooks was staring at her like she was a bomb that might explode. His hands were shaking slightly. "Sir," Sterling said to the captain, "what's going on? Are you going to remove her or not?" The captain couldn't seem to form words. He kept looking between Maya and the spot where she'd put the document away. Martinez stepped forward. "Captain, what's the problem?" Brooks finally found his voice. "Ms. Washington, I owe you an enormous apology. We all do." "Who is Ms. Washington?" Sterling demanded, his voice getting shrill. Maya looked up from her magazine. "Maya Washington, chairwoman of Meridian Investment Group." The name meant nothing to Sterling, but it clearly meant something to the crew. Patricia had gone pale. Martinez was frantically checking something on her phone. "Oh no," Martinez whispered. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Jessica's viewers were now over 1,500. Comments were flooding in, many from people who recognized the name. "Wait," one viewer commented. "Meridian Investment Group? Don't they own like half the airline industry?" Another comment. "Maya Washington is on the Forbes power list. She's worth like $2 billion. Jessica read the comments aloud for her stream. Sterling finally heard them. "What? That's impossible. She can't be—" "Actually," Maya said, still reading her magazine, "Meridian Investment Group owns a 67% controlling stake in transatlantic airlines." The words hit the cabin like a physical force. Sterling's mouth fell open. "Which means," Maya continued conversationally, "I'm your boss. All of your bosses, actually." Captain Brooks looked like he wanted to disappear. "Ms. Washington, if you had known, you would have treated me differently," Maya finished. "Which is exactly the problem." She finally looked up from her magazine. Her eyes swept the cabin, taking in every face, every phone, every witness to what had just happened. "The question is," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the aircraft, "what are we going to do about it?" Sterling was still sputtering. But you can't, I mean—" Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. "Mr. Sterling, I think you're in my seat." The cabin fell into absolute silence. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet down. Sterling's face cycled through emotions like a broken traffic light. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. That's not possible," he stammered. "You're just trying to intimidate us." Maya reached into her briefcase again. This time, she pulled out a thick folder of documents. She handed one to Captain Brooks. Transatlantic Airlines Board of Directors meeting minutes, she said calmly. From last Tuesday. Page 3 shows the acquisition vote for Regional Connect Airways. My signature is at the bottom. Brooks scanned the document. His face went from pale to gray. Page 7 details the $2.3 billion purchase agreement, Maya continued. Meridian Investment Group now controls 67% of Transatlantic's outstanding shares. She handed another document to Martinez. This is the quarterly report. We reported $847 million in revenue last quarter. My investment firm's stake is worth approximately $3.2 billion. Martinez looked at the papers like they were radioactive. Ms. Washington, I can't apologize enough. You can't? Maya's eyebrow arched. Interesting choice of words. Jessica's live stream was exploding. The viewer count had hit 3,000. Comments were flying by faster than she could read them. Holy shit, she's actually the owner of the airline. This is the best plot twist ever. That man is so fired. Sterling was still shaking his head. This is some kind of elaborate scam. You can't just walk onto a plane and claim you own it. Maya pulled out her phone. She showed the screen to Captain Brooks. It displayed her contact list with entries like CEO Transatlantic, VP Operations, and Chief Financial Officer. Would you like me to call any of them? She asked pleasantly. Sterling's bluster was cracking. Even if you are who you say you are, that doesn't give you the right to take my seat. My seat, Maya corrected. On my airline, which I was testing. The words landed like hammer blows. Captain Brooks closed his eyes, probably calculating his pension. Testing? Patricia asked weakly. I fly commercial once a month, Maya explained. Unannounced. It's the only way to see how customers are really treated. She gestured around the cabin. Today's test revealed some interesting data points. Sterling was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Look, I didn't know who you were. If you had known, you would have behaved differently, Maya said. Which proves my point exactly. She stood up, commanding the attention of everyone in the cabin. This is the 4th incident of discrimination I've witnessed on transatlantic flights this year. The previous 3 involved other passengers who didn't have the resources to fight back. Jessica's stream was now being shared across social media platforms. The hashtag #FlightDrama was trending nationally. Mr. Sterling, Maya said, her voice carrying absolute authority, you assumed I didn't belong in business class because of how I look. You harassed me. You made racist assumptions. You tried to have me removed from an airplane I own. Sterling's face was red, but now from shame rather than anger. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said, Maya replied. The question is, what are the consequences? Captain Brooks found his voice. Ms. Washington, what can we do to make this right? Maya smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. That's an interesting question, Captain. What would you normally do to an employee who discriminated against your boss? The implication hung in the air like a guillotine blade. But first, Maya continued, let's talk about Mr. Sterling's behavior. She turned to face him directly. You attempted to intimidate a passenger. You made racist assumptions. You caused a flight delay. You created a hostile environment for other customers. Sterling was sweating profusely now. I'm sorry. I'm deeply sorry. I made a mistake. You made several mistakes, Maya corrected, and they're all documented. She gestured to Jessica's phone. 4,700 people have now watched you discriminate against me. The video is being shared across every social platform. Sterling's face went white. Please, I can't have this get out. My job, my reputation. Should have thought of that before, Maya said simply. She turned back to the crew. Captain Brooks, how does Transatlantic typically handle passengers who harass other customers? Brooks swallowed hard. We have a no-tolerance policy. Aggressive passengers can be banned from future flights. Excellent, Maya said. Mr. Sterling, you're now banned from transatlantic airlines, permanently. What? You can't do that. I can do whatever I want, Maya replied. It's my airline. She wasn't finished. Patricia, you assumed I was the problem before investigating. You unconsciously deferred to Mr. Sterling's authority. How do you think that looks to other passengers of color? Patricia was crying now. I'm so sorry, Ms. Washington. I never meant to. Intent doesn't matter, Maya said. Impact does. And your impact was to make a paying customer feel unwelcome on her own airline. She looked around the cabin at all the passengers who'd been watching. Everyone here witnessed discrimination in action. They saw how quickly airline employees sided with the aggressive white passenger over the quiet black woman. The words cut through the cabin like a blade. Several passengers looked away, ashamed. This is what systematic racism looks like, Maya continued. Not burning crosses or slurs, just assumptions. Just defaulting to believing one person over another based on appearance. Sterling made one last desperate attempt. Look, I'm sorry. I'll apologize publicly. I'll do whatever you want. But please don't ruin my life over this. Maya considered him for a long moment. Mr. Sterling, you tried to ruin my day because you assumed I didn't belong somewhere. You used your perceived authority to intimidate me. You made racist comments in front of dozens of witnesses. She leaned forward slightly. And your first concern isn't about being wrong, it's about facing consequences. Sterling's shoulders sagged. He finally understood there was no talking his way out of this. However, Maya continued, I'm not interested in destroying you personally. I'm interested in preventing this from happening to other people. She turned to address the entire cabin. Everyone here learned something today. You learned that appearances can be deceiving. You learned that speaking up matters. You learned that actions have consequences. Jessica's live stream was now approaching 10,000 viewers. The comments were a mix of amazement, outrage, and support. Ms. Chen, Maya said, addressing Jessica directly, thank you for documenting this. Your courage in speaking up made a difference. Jessica blushed. I just did what felt right. Exactly, Maya said. And that's what we all should do. She looked back at Captain Brooks. I want to meet with your management team in Miami. We need to discuss some immediate policy changes. Of course, Ms. Washington, whatever you need. And Mr. Sterling, Maya added, you'll be escorted off the aircraft in Miami. Security will be waiting. Sterling nodded miserably. The fight had gone out of him completely. Maya sat back down in seat 3A. She opened her Forbes magazine and found her place. Now, she said pleasantly, I believe we have a flight to catch. Captain Brooks practically ran back to the cockpit. Patricia was frantically calling ahead to Miami. Martinez was already on her phone with corporate headquarters. The cabin slowly returned to normal, but the energy was completely different. Passengers were quiet, processing what they'd witnessed. Phones were still out, but now people were texting friends and family about the incredible scene they'd just seen. Jessica was still streaming, but she'd moved to commentary mode. Y'all, I can't believe what just happened. This woman just owned that entire situation. Maya continued reading her magazine as if nothing had happened. But there was a small smile on her face. She'd turned a moment of discrimination into a teaching moment. She'd used her power not for revenge, but for education. And she'd done it all without raising her voice or losing her composure once. The plane finally pushed back from the gate, 45 minutes late. But Maya Washington was exactly where she belonged. The first-class galley had been cleared of passengers. Maya sat across from Captain Brooks, Flight Supervisor Martinez, and a very uncomfortable Patricia Jones. Sterling had been moved to the back of the plane, flanked by 2 air marshals. Jessica's live stream was still running from seat 3B, now with over 15,000 viewers. The story was spreading across social media faster than wildfire. Ms. Washington, Captain Brooks began, I want to personally apologize for... Maya held up a hand. Captain, I'm not interested in apologies. I'm interested in solutions. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. Let's discuss the facts. Transatlantic Airlines reported $847 million in revenue last quarter. Stock price is currently at $127 per share. My investment firm owns 67% of outstanding equity. She wrote numbers as she spoke. That's a $3.2 billion controlling interest. Are we clear on the financial stakes? The crew members nodded frantically. Good, Maya continued. Now, federal discrimination lawsuits against airlines average $2.8 million in settlements. That's assuming they don't go to trial. She tapped her pen against the pad. Viral discrimination videos typically cause stock prices to drop 12 to 18% within 48 hours. At our current valuation, that's a potential $380 million loss in market cap. Captain Brooks was taking notes. What do you need from us? Complete policy overhaul, Maya said without hesitation. I want new discrimination protocols within 30 days. Mandatory unconscious bias training for all customer-facing employees. And I want a direct reporting system that bypasses management and goes straight to the board. She looked at each crew member in turn. This incident proves our current system is broken. Staff automatically assumed the white passenger was correct. No one questioned Mr. Sterling's behavior until I revealed my identity. Patricia was crying quietly. I'm so sorry, Ms. Washington. I've never... Patricia, how long have you worked for Transatlantic? 22 years. And in those 22 years, how many times have you seen a black passenger in business class? Patricia thought for a moment. Not very often. So when you saw me, your unconscious bias kicked in. You assumed I was the problem. Maya's voice wasn't angry, just matter of fact. That's exactly what we need to fix. She turned to Martinez. I want you to implement a passenger discrimination reporting app. Customers can report incidents directly to board members. No filtering through management. Yes, ma'am. When do you need it? Yesterday, Maya replied, but I'll settle for next week. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. The Department of Transportation Investigation Unit is calling. They've been monitoring airline discrimination complaints. Today's incident will likely accelerate their review. Captain Brooks looked sick. DOT investigation? Don't worry, Captain. I've been coordinating with them for months. This wasn't an accident. The words hit like a thunderbolt. What do you mean? Maya set down her pen. I mean, I've been conducting systematic tests of airline discrimination policies. I fly commercial monthly, unannounced, to different destinations. I document how passengers of color are treated. She opened her phone and showed them a spreadsheet. This is my 4th incident this year on transatlantic flights. The previous 3 involved passengers who didn't have the resources to fight back. You've been planning this? I've been documenting systematic discrimination, Maya corrected. Today's test revealed exactly what I expected. When faced with a conflict between a white passenger and a black passenger, staff consistently side with the white passenger. She looked around the galley. Every employee here made the same assumption. Even when I remained calm and Mr. Sterling became aggressive, you assumed I was the problem. Martinez was frantically taking notes. What can we do to prevent this? Training isn't enough, Maya said. We need structural changes, new hiring practices, diverse management teams, regular audits by external consultants. She pulled out another document. I've already retained Thompson & Associates, the leading civil rights law firm. They're preparing a comprehensive review of our policies. Captain Brooks was sweating. Are we being sued? Not yet, Maya said. But if we don't make meaningful changes, we will be, by multiple parties. She gestured toward Jessica's phone. That live stream has been shared 47,000 times in the past hour. Hashtag flight drama is trending nationally. CNN wants an interview. So does MSNBC. What do you want us to do? Maya smiled. I want you to help me transform this airline into a model for the industry. She stood up and walked to the galley window. Transatlantic can lead on civil rights, or we can be dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I prefer the first option. What about Mr. Sterling? Patricia asked. Mr. Sterling will face consequences for his behavior, Maya said. But he's not the real problem. The real problem is a system that enabled his behavior. She turned back to face them. Every employee who witnessed his harassment and said nothing. Every policy that allows discrimination to flourish. Every unconscious bias that makes customers feel unwelcome. Her phone rang. She answered it on speaker. Ms. Washington, this is David Chen from the DOT Office of Civil Rights. Hello, David. I'm here with the transatlantic crew from today's incident. We've been monitoring the social media coverage. Is now a good time to discuss our investigation timeline? Maya looked at the crew members. Perfect timing. I think everyone here is ready to cooperate fully. Excellent. We'll need to interview all personnel involved, and we'll want to review your new policies before implementation. Of course. When can we schedule that? How about tomorrow? I can fly to Miami tonight. Maya checked her calendar. That works. Captain Brooks, Flight Supervisor Martinez, and Gate Agent Jones will be available for interviews. The crew members looked terrified. Don't worry, Maya said after hanging up. This is an opportunity, not a punishment. We're going to fix this problem properly. She sat back down and pulled out her legal pad again. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Sterling will be banned from transatlantic permanently. He'll also be placed on the industry no-fly sharing list. We can do that? We can do that, Maya confirmed. Patricia, you'll attend mandatory sensitivity training. You'll also participate in our new customer service excellence program. Patricia nodded eagerly. Whatever you need. Captain Brooks, you'll be working with our new diversity and inclusion officer. We're hiring one next week. Yes, ma'am. Maya made more notes. I want monthly reports on discrimination complaints. I want quarterly diversity audits. And I want an annual review of our hiring practices. She looked up from her pad. Most importantly, I want every employee to understand that discrimination has real consequences, not just for the victims, but for the company. The stock price impact you mentioned is already happening, Maya said, checking her phone. We're down 8% in after-hours trading, but it'll recover once we announce our new policies. She stood up again. Gentlemen, ladies, you've witnessed something historic today. You've seen how quickly discrimination can escalate. You've seen how social media amplifies injustice. And you've seen how power can be used responsibly. Captain Brooks found his voice. What's the timeline for all these changes? 30 days for policy implementation, 60 days for training programs, 90 days for structural changes. Maya packed her legal pad away. And 1 year from today, I want Transatlantic to be the most inclusive airline in America. She looked each of them in the eye. This is your chance to be part of the solution. Don't waste it. The plane began its descent into Miami. Maya returned to her seat, leaving the crew to contemplate their future. Jessica was still streaming, now with 23,000 viewers. The story had taken on a life of its own. Maya opened her Forbes magazine and continued reading, as if she hadn't just restructured an entire airline's approach to civil rights, but there was a satisfied smile on her face. Phase 1 was complete. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Maya stood in Transatlantic's Miami headquarters, reviewing the quarterly discrimination report. The numbers told the story. Complaints down 89%, customer satisfaction up 34%, and stock price at an all-time high. The dignity in flight policy has exceeded all expectations, reported Sarah Kim, the new VP of Diversity and Inclusion. We've had 0 viral discrimination incidents since implementation. Maya nodded, flipping through the data. What about employee training completion rates? 100% compliance. Every customer-facing employee has completed unconscious bias certification. We've terminated 3 employees who failed the program. The new policies were comprehensive. The passenger discrimination reporting app had been downloaded 340,000 times. Monthly diversity audits were conducted by external consultants, and the zero-tolerance policy had been tested and enforced. "What about industry impact?" Maya asked. Sarah smiled. 4 major airlines have adopted similar policies. United, Delta, American, and Southwest all referenced our program in their diversity initiatives. Maya's phone buzzed with a news alert. Transatlantic named Most Inclusive Airline by Civil Rights Coalition. The story had become a Harvard Business School case study. Corporate Leadership in Crisis, the Maya Washington method, was required reading in 3 different courses. Jessica Chen had parlayed her viral live stream into a career in social justice journalism. Her TikTok account had 2.3 million followers, and she'd been hired as a diversity consultant by several major corporations. "The ripple effects continue," Sarah noted. Jessica's documentary about the incident premiered at Sundance last month. Maya walked to her office window, looking out at the bustling airport. Her monthly test flights continued, but now she rarely encountered discrimination. The system was working. Her assistant knocked. "Ms. Washington, there's someone here to see you." Richard Sterling stood in the doorway, looking significantly older than he had 6 months ago. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by something resembling humility. "Mr. Sterling," Maya said, gesturing to a chair. "I wasn't expecting you." He sat down carefully. "I wanted to apologize. Properly this time." Maya studied him. "Go ahead. I've spent 6 months thinking about what I did, the assumptions I made, the privilege I assumed I had." He paused. "I was wrong. Completely wrong. And I want to make amends. I've been working with the NAACP on diversity training programs. I've spoken at 3 corporate seminars about unconscious bias." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Interesting career change." "I lost my job after the video went viral," Sterling admitted, "but it forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself." He pulled out a letter. "I've written a formal apology. I'd like to donate $50,000 to Transatlantic's Diversity Scholarship Fund." Maya read the letter. It was thoughtful, specific, and seemed genuine. "This is a start," she said. "But words and money aren't enough. What are you doing to change the system that created your behavior?" Sterling straightened. "I'm testifying before Congress next month. The House Transportation Committee is holding hearings on airline discrimination." "That's more like it," Maya said, a small smile playing at her lips. After Sterling left, Maya returned to her reports. The quarterly numbers were impressive, but the real victory was cultural. Transatlantic had become a model for corporate accountability. Her phone rang. "Ms. Washington, this is Anderson Cooper's office. We'd like to schedule a follow-up interview about the airline industry reforms." Maya checked her calendar. "Next Tuesday works." The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Real change takes time, but Maya Washington had proven that one moment of courage could transform an entire industry. Sometimes the greatest power move is refusing to move at all. 2 years after the incident that changed everything, Maya Washington's story had become legend. The video of her calm confrontation with Richard Sterling had been viewed 47 million times across all platforms. It was studied in business schools, referenced in congressional hearings, and cited in federal discrimination law reforms. Transatlantic Airlines had become the gold standard for inclusive corporate culture. Other companies across industries were adopting the Washington Protocol, systematic testing of discrimination policies by executives. Maya's approach had proven that real change comes not from anger or retaliation, but from strategic patience and systematic reform. She'd used her moment of humiliation as fuel for transformation. The ripple effects continued expanding. Jessica Chen's documentary Seat 3A had won an Emmy. Richard Sterling's redemption story had inspired a best-selling book about confronting privilege. Even Patricia Jones had become a diversity trainer, using her experience to help other employees recognize unconscious bias. But Maya's greatest pride wasn't the awards or recognition. It was the letters she received from passengers of color who no longer felt unwelcome on airplanes. The young black executives who told her the story gave them courage to speak up in corporate settings. The white allies who'd learned to use their privilege responsibly. These real-life stories proved that touching stories of courage could create lasting change. Black stories mattered not just for representation, but for transformation. Life stories like Maya's showed that one person's refusal to accept discrimination could protect thousands of others. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing, Maya had said in her TED Talk. Let others reveal themselves. Document everything. Then use your voice strategically. Her story had become a masterclass in quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Your turn to create change. Maya Washington's story proves that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's speaking up. Sometimes it's staying silent. Sometimes it's using your privilege to protect others. Have you witnessed discrimination in your workplace, your community, or while traveling? Your voice matters. Your documentation could be the evidence that creates change. Share this story with someone who needs to see that power isn't always loud. Comment below with your own experiences of standing up to injustice. And subscribe to see more stories of everyday heroes who refuse to accept the unacceptable. Because in a world full of Richard Sterlings, we need more Maya Washingtons. What injustice will you help change today?